أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر الله أكبر جل جلاله ربي الله أكبر الله أكبر جل جلاله ربي أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أشهد أن عليا ولي الله عليه الصلاة والسلام أشهد أن عليا حجة الله عليه الصلاة والسلام حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له بسم الله اللهم اجعل قلبي بارا وشفاء ولساني ورزقي دارا أولادي بارا واجعلني عند قبر نبيك مستقرا وقرارا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين شفيع المذنبين وحبيب قلوب الصادقين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الأطيبين الأطهرين الهداة المهديين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. The next section of our discussion about the teachings of Ahlul Bayt regarding how to live our life after we talk about our person, health and hygiene. We talk a little bit about our food. We spoke about our clothing. The next section deals with our home or our abode, where we live. And there are some teachings of Islam with regard to what kind of home you should prefer or you should choose. And some of these teachings may be a little bit counterintuitive, meaning they might be a little bit different from what we would expect. Because Islam is a religion that tells us that you shouldn't be too concerned about the affairs of this world. The dunya should not be akbaru hammina. It shouldn't be the biggest of our concerns. I wake up and I think, how can I get richer? How can I get more power? How can I advance in my career? How can I have a better car or home or food? These concerns, they're part of our life, and they should be a part of our life. And in fact, if we have these concerns, then we can also be more effective in serving our religion, but they shouldn't be our biggest concerns. Now, if I want to advance in my career or in my ability to exercise influence in work or in society, then by having that influence, by having that strength, I can do more good than I would be able to do if I didn't have a voice, if I didn't have influence. So it's not wrong to want to advance, because advancing in a worldly way can help us serve our religious goals. But the principle that we have in Islam is that worldly advancement, even if it is for a religious goal, should not be our biggest concern. Our biggest concern should be our piety, our righteousness. And then the religion wants us to look at our worldly needs and advancement in order to serve those goals. So the priorities are different. And that's why when we look at some of these ahadith that we will be talking about, we might be surprised to see the emphasis on having a good home. But one of the things that allows us to raise a family, to be able to honor our relationships, is to have a home that makes it easy for us to do so. And so this is why a number of sayings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam, they do speak about and they do emphasize the conditions of your home. So let us take a look at a few of these ahadith. The first is a hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa And Prophet Muhammad, he is speaking here of the good life. Every one of us has the concept of a good life in our mind. For some of us, it might be having, a large screen TV and surround sound and a comfortable seat where we can watch movies or where we can play video games. For somebody, it might be having a lake house where every weekend they can go and they can canoe or fish or have fun. For somebody, it might be to travel and see new sights around the world. So there are different conceptions of the good life. Everybody has their own individual conception. But generally speaking, even if your preferences, your dreams are different from mine, you want to buy a yacht, I want to buy an RV and travel around the country, and somebody else wants to travel first class around the world and see mountains and ruins. They're all different, but they share one thing. Whether you want to buy a yacht, or a lake house, or an RV, or travel the world in style and luxury, you need money. And so most people's conception of the good life, in spite of whatever differences there may be, they revolve around money and being rich. That part is shared for most people's idea of the good life. In other words, if I have a middle class life, or if I may be poor, then I feel like I can't live the good life. And one of the changes that has taken place in our current generation is that everyone has access to the lifestyles of the rich and famous, whether it be through cable a few years ago or internet now, the spread of news, and so everyone has some idea of how people who are richer are living. And that creates a little bit of an expectation or a dream or even envy that I wish I had that. And it makes me feel like my life is not that good. If I thought that having a car is a lot better than walking, I might be very happy that I have a car, I don't have to walk a mile to buy my groceries. But then if I know that people have cars that do a whole lot of things that my car doesn't do, I have to say salawat just to make sure it's going to start, and other people have all of these other things in their car, then that same very serviceable, very usable car that made me happy yesterday is going to make me feel like I'm missing something, I'm lacking something. So the fact that we know about how other people are living, sometimes it's a bad thing. Not that the knowledge is bad, but the effect it has on our emotional health and our spiritual health is bad. It makes us less appreciative of what we have. So in Islam, when Prophet Muhammad speaks about the good life, the lesson we learn is that the good life does not depend on being rich or having a lot of money. It's not dependent on what kind of toys or luxuries does somebody else have. Don't be living a life of envy or materialism. And so this is the hadith of the Prophet. He says that min sa'adatil mar', three of the things, there's three things that are mentioned, actually four things in this hadith. There are other hadith that mention a different list. Four things the Prophet mentions that are components of a good life. The first, al-mar'atu salihah, to have a pious spouse. Not a beautiful spouse, not a rich spouse, not the kinds of things that people look for, but a salih spouse. If you have a family that is pious, that is honest, that has character, that is something that will be there for you in this life and in the hereafter. You don't have to worry that this is a material good. It's spiritual good. And so its benefit will be there in this life and in the hereafter. In your own life, for them, for your children, for your offspring, that benefit will be there at all times. So the first component that Prophet Muhammad mentions is al-mar'atu salihah. Wal-maskanul wasi'ah. The second thing the Prophet mentions, this is connected to our material circumstances. He says, a spacious home. If you have a spacious home, then it can accommodate you. It has a psychological effect and a benefit for you. And it also means that you can be a host to your relatives for getting together, for creating a closer relationship. It allows you to be of service to your own dependents and family in a better way, and also to other believers, community members, family members. So this is a good thing. Not a fancy home, but a spacious home. And a spacious home does not only mean large square footage. The spaciousness is also about how we utilize the space and what is in our heart. Because the purpose of the spaciousness of the home is not because we want to be on a TV show. It's not because we want to impress anybody. As we will see in the hadith, the reason why a spacious home is good is because it allows us to strengthen our relationships with our family members and with others in a better way. And so it's partially a matter of the home itself, but it's just as much a matter of the heart and the utilization of that space. وَالْمَرْكَبُ الْبَهِي. The third thing in this hadith that the Prophet mentions is a markab, a horse in that day. Today it would be a car that is reliable, that is comfortable. So you're able to travel reliably and you're able to take care of your affairs. So to have a good markab is part of sa'adah. وَالْوَلَدُ الصَّالِحِ. And to have righteous and noble children. So now, in this hadith, there's 4 things that are mentioned: a righteous spouse, a spacious home, a good ride, in our time that would be a car, and righteous children. Our material circumstances influence these things. There's no doubt that if you can afford a reliable car, then you are better off materially than somebody who cannot afford a reliable car. If you can afford a spacious home to rent or to buy, then materially you are better off than somebody who cannot afford it. But it's not primarily the material aspect that the Prophet is focusing on. Those material blessings, if Allah has made them available to us, we should take advantage of them. And as we will see in these hadith that are coming, we should take advantage of them for our spiritual and our religious goals, and not for the sake of themselves. And the 2 things that the Prophet repeats are salah. Salah meaning piety and goodness in your spouse and in your children. So that's what our dreams should be. For those of you who are younger, for yourselves, for your future family members and children, for those of us who are older, for our own children. For them to succeed and be at the top of their career, to be high income earners, to have all of those material forms of success, to go to a good college, those are all good things. But the most important thing that we should pray for, that we should work for, that we should dream for is to be righteous, to be just and upright in our character. Nothing compares to that. Wealth without character, honor in societal terms without character, power and influence and a good reputation without inner piety, all of those things are worthless. And if you have piety, then all of those things are icing on the cake. They are additional and they are helpful. Now, a few more ahadith from the Prophet about the home. One hadith is with regard to what you do when you purchase a new home. And in this hadith, Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alih, he says, "Man bana manzilan falyadhbah kabshan wal yut'im lahmahu al masakin." Whoever builds a house, when you acquire a new home, in particular if you build a home, فَلْيَذْبَحْ كَبْشًا, then it's very highly recommended to slaughter a sheep, an animal, and this is one of those instances where a walima is recommended. So to slaughter an animal, and then وَلْيُطْعِمْ لَحْمَهُ الْمَسَاكِينَ, give that meat to the poor. So whenever a blessing comes to me, as a general principle, sometimes we think of ourselves. The worst example, perhaps, in this society is a marriage. There's even a word, you've heard the word bridezilla. It's a combination of bride and I believe Godzilla, if I'm not mistaken. It's a humorous term, but it refers to the idea that somebody thinks this is my day, and it's supposed to be a special day for me, and it's all about me and my dreams and my wants. And you can be a groomzilla, you can be a bridezilla. Many people are just Godzilla in their life all the time. In Islam, whenever there is a special day for you, A birthday, a graduation, a marriage, a happy occasion, a promotion, a new house, it's not about you. And it shouldn't be about you. It should be about you and yours. And when there's a good day for me, I should think, how can I celebrate by sharing other believers, my family, in my happiness, by making them feel that this success is not I have built a new house, but now they have a home that they can come to, that they can benefit from. That is not just mine, but that is a benefit for all of them. And similarly, if I get a job, then it's not just my advancement, but it is an advancement for my family and for my community, because I will be there for them. Not just they should be happy for me. They should be happy for me because my success means that now I am in a better position to give them advice, to give them help, to be there for them. And that's not just for your family, but also for the poor. So a person who builds a house, that's a person who's doing well materially. Usually, that's a person who has recently come into new money or raised their income or inherited some money. At that time, when you are doing well, the Prophet says, remember masakeen, those who are at the very bottom of society. And then when we think of masakeen, we figure, well, they don't have anything in their life. If I give them a box of cereal, that's already something that they don't maybe get to eat every day. If I want to buy something for myself, then I'll buy organic food. But if I'm giving it for the poor, I'll say, even just the regular produce is better than what they have. They normally would eat canned food or expired food, so I'll just get them the normal stuff. What does Prophet Muhammad ﷺ say? Slaughter an animal and give them meat, meaning give them of the best of what you yourself eat. So when you're thinking of the masakeen, you've built a house, you're doing well. First of all, don't forget those who are not doing well and those who are poor. And second of all, when you remember them, don't remember them as if you are better and they are worse, you are successful and they are failures. Don't remember them in that arrogant way and just give them some crumbs so you can feel better about yourself. Give them good food, the best of what you yourself would eat. فَلْيَذْبَحْ كَبْشًا وَلْيُطْعِمْ لَحْمَهُ الْمَسَاكِينَ. Give the meat of that sacrifice, which at that time was the most expensive food that people would have. That's what you should give to masakin. And then one more hadith of our Prophet, Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alih. This is one of those hadith that explains why having a spacious home is recommended. The Prophet says, خَيْرُ بُيُوتِكُمْ بَيْتٌ فِيهِ يَتِيمٌ يُحْسَنُ إِلَيْهِ. The very best of your homes is a home in which there is a yatim, an orphan, to whom kindness is shown. Whether, especially in past times, it would be common for people to die due to accidents, due to war, due to sickness or whatever. And so a relative, a nephew, a niece, they may have lost a parent, not be able to support themselves. So it was very common for people to have relatives who didn't have their parents or didn't have a home. The Prophet says the very best of your homes is one in which there is a yatim, and not a yatim who is there as a sense of obligation that I don't want them to be on the street, so I'll invite them in, but I'm not going to honor them. يُحْسَنُ إِلَيْهِ, where that yatim is honored. وَالشَّرُّ بُيُوتِكُمْ بَيْتٌ يُسَاءُ إِلَيْهِ. And the very worst of your homes is one in which a yatim is dishonored. Whether, now this part of the hadith doesn't say that yatim is living, but that a house that dishonors a yatim. It might be even if that yatim comes as a guest, but I don't give them honor and intention. And this is because in Islam, to honor those who have lost their parents. That is a very noble trait. There's a hadith of our Prophet. He said, "Ana wa kafilul yatimi kahataini fil jannah." I and a person who takes care of a yatim will be like this in paradise. And of course, this is a dual meaning. One is that kafilul yatim was Abu Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. He was the one who took care of the Prophet when the Prophet was a yatim. And the second meaning of the hadith is general. That anybody who does that, they will be on the sunnah of Abu Talib, the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, the sunnah of Ahlul Bayt, and they will be with Ahlul Bayt. And that's something that all of us can do. In our own lives, set aside a portion of our income to help those who have lost their family members and are weak. Now, in past times, the best way to do this would often be to bring that yatim into your own home, especially if it was the son or daughter of a brother or a sister or a close relative. And that's one reason why a spacious home would be very useful. In our time, if there are shuhada in other countries, or even in this society, if there are people who have been deprived of the presence of their parent, then whatever we can do to help them, that is a form of kafala. It doesn't have to be only in one's own home. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So now let's look back to the topic of the home in particular. What are some of the ahadith about the home? There is a statement from Imam Ali alayhi salam. He says, "Inna lid-dari sharafa." Inna lid-dari sharafa. Every house has a nobility, kind of a form of honor. وَشَرَفُهَا السَّاحَةُ الْوَاسِعَةُ. One of the forms of honor is to have a wide lawn, to have a spacious lawn. That is a good thing for a home. And this is the second time that a hadith have mentioned a spacious home or a spacious lawn. And we should remember that these are, if it is possible for you, if it is affordable for you, then this is something that is good. It doesn't mean that we should put all of our other obligations on hold, take out loans that are going to cause us stress and our family stress, and then buy a home that is more than we can afford. And then we're always angry and always worried and always upset. These ahadith are telling us that this is a good thing. If it's possible for you, if it's feasible for you, then take advantage of that opportunity and blessing that Allah has given you. But then we have to weigh it according to our other obligations in life as well. We should remember that. So the first thing Imam Ali says is that the nobility of a home, it's a blessing for your home, an honor that you have a spacious lawn, وَالْخُلَطَاءُ الصَّالِحُونَ, and that you have good friends. So choose who you invite to your home and whose invitation you accept. And not just choose among the potential people that you associate with, but also look for associates. So sometimes people move to a new area and they don't know a lot of people and they kind of stay separate and isolated. Imam Ali says that it is honor for your home to have khulata salihun, good people to associate with. So if you have a number of acquaintances, choose those who are salih among them and strengthen that relationship. Not just the people who are fun, but the people who are pious. And if you're in a new area, you don't have friends, you don't know a lot of people, you don't have a lot of acquaintances, then try to acquire people whom you can associate with, khulata, people who you can visit, people whom you can invite to your own home, so you have wholesome company. That is the second thing, which is sharaf for your home. And then the Imam says, وَإِنَّ لَهَا بَرَكَةً. Every home has barakah, blessing. What is the blessing of the home? جَوْدَةُ مَوْضِعِهَا, for it to be in a good area. if your home is in a good neighborhood, if you have a good neighbors, then that is a blessing for your home. وَسَعَةُ سَاحَتِهَا. And similarly, having a spacious home and lawn, that is a source of blessings. وَحُسْنُ جِوَارِ جِيرَانِهَا. And then to be a good neighbor and to enjoy the good neighborliness of your neighbors, this brings barakah and blessings to your home. The next hadith is one that is also general, and I'll mention it because it's relevant to our homes, it's relevant to other parts of our life. The hadith is narrated from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. And there is a similar hadith found in Sunni sources as well. This hadith is from our sixth Imam. And the Imam says that after the death of one of the Prophet's companions, Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, this was one of the companions of the Prophet in Medina, in Saudi. When he passed away, the Prophet said that the grave should be dug cleanly and then formed and fashioned in a beautiful and an elegant manner. And this was surprising to people because they generally think that you're digging a grave, you're going to bury a person, and then you're going to fill that grave in right away. So the common perception among people is that this is not something that you have to make straight and neat and elegant and beautiful. It's just something that you can do, however it gets done, and then fill it up. And then at that time, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Inni la'alamu annahu sayabla." I know that this is a grave, and it's not a house that somebody's going to be living in. Very soon, it's going to kind of come back to its natural state. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ عَبْدًا إِذَا عَمِلَ عَمَلًا أَحْكَمَهُ. But Allah loves for a person, whenever they do something, even if you're digging a hole, that you're going to fill up right away. إِذَا عَمِلَ عَمَلًا. When you do something, أَحْكَمَهُ. Do it firmly and do it well. Don't do it half-heartedly, don't do it haphazardly, and don't do it in a sloppy and an inelegant manner. And this is also with respect to our homes. We should take care of them. Not just the function, but also the beautification and the strengthening. Do things well to the best of our ability. Now, in the interest of time, I will just summarize the message we have in a few additional ahadith from Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. The Imam says that your home, and this is usually for single-story homes that were common in that time, don't make the walls too high. Recommendation in hadith is 7 cubits, or the arm spans. So that should be the height of a house. Beyond that, it becomes extravagant. And then if there is a house that is taller than that, according to some ahadith, it is recommended to place Ayatul Kursi on the walls of that house. And that might be for spiritual protection, but also as a reminder of the fact that we are looking for the protection of Allah for our well-being and for our physical safety as well. Now, the last hadith that I will look at is going to be a little bit surprising for some of us, so let me give a little bit of context in the beginning. Sometimes our imams, they would give a slightly harsh message to somebody, and the harsh message is because there is a destructive culture that people have, which is bad for them. And the imam, in order to shake a person out of their complacency, to shake a person out of their habit, they might give a message that seems to us a little bit harsh. But when we think about it, we realize that this is an important thing for people to be aware of. And the harshness is actually deliberate, because the harm of ignoring a problem, trying to be nice, that is far greater. In English, we call it enabling. Like, for example, if I have a problem with my anger, and you know that I have a problem, but rather than try to advise me to deal with my anger, you cover it up. And then I destroy my relationships. Maybe I destroy my friendships. Maybe I get fired from my job. So are you being nice to me by not telling me what my weakness is? Maybe you think I want to be nice. I'm non-confrontational. I don't want to start a fight. But you're not being nice. All of the harm that I suffer is because of that enabling. So this is why sometimes the imams would give a very direct and what seems like a harsh message. The hadith is from Imam Rida alayhi salatu wasalam, our 8th imam. The imam, he purchased a home and he told one of his followers, Mawla, that why don't you move to this home that I have purchased for you? Because the imams, they would take care of those people who were their agents, the workers. They were devoting their life to service of Islam, service of the imams. The imams would look after their material needs. So the imam said, why don't you move to this house? Inna manzilaka dayyiq. Your current home is too small. Maybe that person had an expanding family or whatever the reasons were. The imam said, this house, I have purchased it for your use. Why don't you move to it? That person responded and said, قَدْ أَحْدَثَ هَذِهِ الدَّارِ أَبِي. This house was made by my father. So it's kind of nostalgic for me. And now the imam says, إِن كَانَ أَبُوكَ أَحْمَقْ يَنْبَغِي أَن تَكُونَ مِثْلَهُ. If your father was foolish, does that mean that you have to be foolish like him? Now, why does this message seem harsh? Because nostalgia is a natural feeling that many of us have. But we don't know the full context of this story, but we have seen many similar kinds of instances in our life. That there is a need my family has. Maybe a very simple example is that they are living in a different time. And I say that I want them to study or to wear the clothing or to live in the same home that I grew up in. I want them to follow the same traditions that I grew up following because of my nostalgia. And in the meantime, they pass up on real opportunities for their own well-being and educational advancement. And maybe I also destroy my relationship because I want things to be the way they were when I was a child. I want things to be the way that they were 50 years ago for my comfort, for my nostalgia. And either I push my children away, or I am unjust to their emotional needs, their educational needs, their material needs. There was a time in colonial India, for example, when Muslims said, we're not going to learn English because this is the language of Firangis, it's the language of foreigners. And what happens? Other people, they saw that the world has changed. This education allows you to advance and to take care of your family, and the Muslims, many of them were left behind. So that mentality, that because this is how it was in the past, that's what we're going to preserve. It doesn't matter what is needed right now. हमेशा से ये चलता आ रहा है और हम ऐसा करते आ रहे हैं और ऐसा ही करेंगे. The Quran criticizes that. هذا ما وجدنا عليه وألفينا عليه آباءنا. Nostalgia is a natural human trait and it's good. If you think about what traditions are worth preserving and how it's worth preserving them. But not if you do it just for the sake of preserving a tradition. So this is one example we have from Ahlul Bayt, where they took a harsh stance, that just because your father built a house, and maybe he could not afford a bigger house, maybe the family was smaller at that time, maybe at that time this was a good neighborhood, now circumstances have changed, your needs have changed, society has changed. Take a look and see what your needs are, and then meet those needs to your ability. And honor your father, and honor his traditions, but through dua, through memory, through amal salih, good deeds, not just by an ignorant or a habitual following. And that's, in this case, an example of a house, but the message is general for all areas of our life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the abundance of His blessings, and may He grant us a home that meets our material needs, and most importantly, that meets our spiritual and our emotional needs. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar fasalli li rabbika wanhar inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى علي أمير المؤمنين وعلى فاطمة الزهراء وعلى الحسن والحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. صلوات. In the second khutbah, I will limit myself to asking Allah for His blessings and His grace for all of us present, for all mu'mineen and mu'minat throughout the world. May Allah forgive our sins and our shortcomings. May He protect us from repeating those mistakes that have caused us harm in the past. May He guide us to do those actions which are pleasing to Him, which are of benefit to us in this life, and will be a source of happiness for us in the hereafter. May Allah guide us to take heed of the message we have received from our Prophet and from our Imams, so that we can benefit from the illumination and from the wisdom that they have given us, especially when we see that the world is surrounded by hopelessness, by injustice, and by darkness. We have a source of light. If we value it and we appreciate it and we benefit from it, then inshallah it will bring us salvation in this life and in the hereafter. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. صلاة الجمعة. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد كذلك الله ربنا الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد ولا أنا عابد ما عبدتم ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد لكم دينكم ولي دين. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لنا وارحمنا وعافنا واعف عنا في الدنيا والآخرة إنك على كل شيء قدير. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا النعماء والجود يا ذا المن والطول حرم شهبتي على النار. اللهم أهدني من عندك وأفض علي من فضلك وانشر علي من رحمتك وانزل علي من بركاتك. إلهي هذه صلاتي صليتها لا لحاجة منك عليها ولا رغبة منك فيها إلا تعظيما وطاعة وإجابة لك إلى ما أمرتني به. إلهي إن كان فيها خلال ونقص من نيتها وقيامها قراءتها وركوعها وسجودها فلا تؤاخذني وتفضل علي بالقبول والغفران برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد. صلاة العصر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر بحول الله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر أستغفر الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك بحق محمد وآل محمد عليك أن تصلي على محمد وآل محمد، وأن تجعل النور في بصري والبصيرة في ديني واليقين في قلبي والإخلاص في عملي والسلامة في نفسي والسعة في رزقي والشكر لك أبدا ما أبقيتني برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام على علي أمير المؤمنين. السلام على فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام على الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة أجمعين. السلام على الأئمة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين، علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. صلوات